All right, get ready, because today we're going deep into a story of ambition,
Oh, yeah.
deception,
Definitely.
and where that line blurs between visionary leadership and just straight up fraud.
Absolutely.
We're talking Bernard Ebbers,
Bernard Ebbers.
the telecom cowboy,
Yeah.
who went from owning, a bunch of motels
Right.
to building a telecom empire.
Yeah. That's
WorldCom,
WorldCom. Yep.
only for it to crash and burn in one of the biggest bankruptcies in history.
It's a wide story.
Was he a true innovator, a master manipulator, or
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in between?
That's the question, isn't it?
That's what we're here to figure out.
I love it.
And to do that, well, we've got a mountain of sources for this.
Lay it on me.
Court documents, financial reports, articles dissecting the whole WorldCom scandal.
All the good stuff.
And we've even got some personal anecdotes
Oh, interesting.
that let us see Ebbers' life
Okay.
beyond the boardroom.
A little more human side.
Exactly.
Like it.
So those personal glimpses are key here
I think so.
to really understand someone like Ebbers.
For sure.
We need to get past just the numbers
Yeah.
and get a sense of who he was as a person.
Totally.
And what we find is a complex
Oh, yeah.
and often contradictory figure,
Oh, I bet.
a man who taught Sunday school, right?
Wow.
And started corporate meetings with prayer,
Interesting.
but then ends up at the center of an $11 billion frog.
It's wild, right? Talk about contradictions.
It's a story that almost seems like it was made for Hollywood.
It's got all the elements, doesn't it?
It really does.
That larger-than-life quality.
Yeah.
It's part of what makes Ebbers so intriguing, I think.
Absolutely.
He embodies that classic American tale of ambition and success, but
Yeah.
with that dark twist.
Yeah, with a dark side.
It's fascinating.
All right, so let's go back to the beginning.
Let's do it.
Ebbers wasn't always some high-flying CEO.
Okay.
He actually started with this string of motels in rural Mississippi.
Oh, wow, really?
That's right.
Huh, that's interesting.
And it's a detail that people forget when they talk about how he, rose to the top.
Sure, sure.
I think it shows a certain, entrepreneurial spirit,
Yeah.
a willingness to start small and build something up.
Bootstrap kind of guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he did.
He did.
By the early 80s, he's in the world of telecommunications,
Okay.
launching this discount long-distance company.
Interesting.
And this was a time of huge deregulation in telecom.
Right.
So a perfect time for someone like Ebbers, who was,
Yeah.
willing to take those risks and challenge how things were done.
A disruptor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He had this incredible talent for finding opportunities, seeing potential where others didn't,
Okay.
and he wasn't scared to make these bold moves.
Like what?
Well, he acquired over 80 smaller firms.
Wow. 80.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
to form what would become WorldCom.
So classic aggressive growth and consolidation.
Exactly.
The strategy that fueled his rise.
Yeah, his meteoric rise.
It's textbook almost.
It is.
But was it all, built on solid ground?
Yeah.
Or was there something, rotten at the core from the get-go?
That's the big question, right?
It is.
And to answer it, we need to look at what was happening
Yeah.
around Ebbers at the time.
Makes sense.
So fast forward to the late 1990s,
Okay.
WorldCom is a Wall Street darling, riding that tech boom.
High times.
But the dot-com bubble's about to burst,
Uh-oh.
and that pressure to keep growing,
Yeah.
it's immense.
You could feel it, right?
You can feel it.
Yeah.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm ready.
Ebbers, he was known for setting these ambitious growth targets,
Right.
and he was laser-focused on meeting Wall Street's expectations.
That's the game.
It is.
Got to keep the investors happy.
He seemed to thrive on exceeding those forecasts
Okay.
and delivering results no matter the cost.
Interesting.
And for a while, he did deliver, right?
He did.
WorldCom stock, it soared.
Making him a billionaire, right?
A billionaire on paper.
On paper, yeah.
But as the market started to cool down, maintaining that kind of growth, it became near impossible.
Right. The bubble can't last forever.
It can't.
So then what?
Well, this is where we start to see those lines blur.
Blur between...
Between ambition and deception.
Okay, I see it.
Did Ebbers just crack under pressure?
Right.
Or was there something darker there from the start?
Yeah, was he always playing the long con?
Because here's the thing. Behind all those impressive growth numbers,
Yeah.
WorldCom was starting to use some, let's say, creative accounting tactics,
Right, huh?
to put it lightly.
Okay, so what were they doing?
They were cooking the books,
Oh, boy.
making the company look profitable
When it wasn't.
when it was actually bleeding money.
Classic.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to make those numbers look good somehow.
Okay, so let's break down how they actually did this.
Yeah, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Okay, how did they cook the books?
One of their main tactics was this thing called capitalizing expenses.
Capitalizing expenses.
Yeah, basically expenses that should have been recorded right away. They spread them out over time.
So it's like making it look like you have more money than you do?
Exactly.
Yeah, classic accounting trick.
It's like saying you bought a brand new car,
Okay.
but you're only recording like the monthly payments as expenses.
Right, instead of the whole cost up front.
Exactly. It gives this illusion that you have way more cash on hand than you really do.
Sneaky.
And on top of that,
There's more.
oh yeah, they got really creative with shifting expenses to different accounts
Oh, I see, to hide the real impact.
to mask the true impact.
Right, make things look better than they are.
It was systematic, like a deliberate effort to just distort the financial picture
Wow.
and deceive investors.
And we're talking big numbers here, right?
Huge. We're not talking about small change.
Billions.
Billions of dollars
Wow.
in fraudulent entries,
Wow.
all woven into those financial statements.
It's like a house of cards.
It is. It's a massive web of deceit, all carefully made to keep that illusion of success going.
And keep that stock price up.
And keep that stock price soaring, exactly.
But you can't hide the truth forever.
Nope, eventually those cracks started to show in WorldCom's facade.
Okay, so what happened?
Well, this is where Cynthia Cooper comes in.
Cynthia Cooper.
She was an internal auditor at WorldCom,
Okay.
and she starts noticing these irregularities.
Like what kind of irregularities?
Well, she saw that line costs, these are the expenses for providing telecom services.
Okay.
They were being capitalized when they shouldn't have been.
Ah, I see. Back to that trick.
And she had the guts to dig deeper, even though her superiors were pressuring her to just, look the other way.
Wow. That takes courage.
It does. It takes a lot of courage.
Going up against the higher-ups like that?
Cooper's role is so important in this whole story.
I bet she blew the whistle.
She did. And she wasn't some disgruntled employee.
Right.
She believed in WorldCom. She was dedicated to her job.
And she saw something was wrong.
Exactly. And she spoke up.
She spoke up.
Good for her.
And thank goodness she did.
Yeah.
Because her investigation uncovered that entire web of fraud.
Billions of dollars worth.
Billions of dollars.
It's amazing how one person can make such a difference.
It's a classic whistleblower story.
It is. Standing up to power, exposing the truth.
It's a testament to her integrity.
Yeah.
And her, unwavering commitment to doing the right thing.
Even if it meant risking her career.
Even when it meant putting her own career at risk.
That's integrity.
So in 2002, the house of cards finally crumbles.
Okay.
WorldCom admits to $3.8 billion in accounting misstatements.
$3.8 billion. Wow.
A number that would eventually balloon to over $11 billion.
That's insane.
It was one of the biggest corporate collapses in U.S. history.
The impact must have been huge.
It was devastating. Thousands of employees lost their jobs.
Wow.
Investors lost their life savings.
Yeah.
The whole telecom sector was rocked.
And Bernard Ebbers.
He's at the center of it all.
It's arrested and charged with securities fraud conspiracy.
So what happened next?
Well, during his trial, Ebbers maintained his innocence.
He did?
Yeah, he claimed he had no idea about the accounting fraud.
Right.
Blamed his subordinates.
Oh, so he played what's it called, the ostrich defense?
Ostrich defense.
Burying his head in the sand?
He even told his church congregation,
What did he say?
I just want you to know you ain't going to church with a crook.
Interesting.
Did he actually believe that?
Right. Was he sincere or just a master manipulator?
Or was he playing the victim?
The jury had to decide.
They did. And ultimately, they didn't buy it.
They found him guilty?
Guilty on all 9 counts.
Wow.
And he was sentenced to 25 years in prison.
25 years. That's a long
It
time.
was a landmark case.
Yeah.
And the sentence, it really reflected how serious the crimes were.
Of course, Enron happened around the same time too, right?
Yeah, and those 2 scandals, they sent shockwaves through corporate America.
Eroding public trust.
It really eroded public trust.
In big business.
Yeah, it led to some major reforms,
Yeah.
like the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002,
Sarbanes-Oxley, right? I remember that.
designed to, strengthen corporate governance
Make things more transparent.
and make financial reporting, more
They prevent future Enrons and WorldComs.
Exactly. Those scandals, they exposed how vulnerable the system was.
Yeah.
How ambition and greed could be masked by all these complex financial tools.
Culture of secrecy.
And a culture of secrecy, yeah.
Sarbanes-Oxley was a direct response to that, trying to regain that investor confidence.
And prevent more of these disasters from happening.
So in a way, Ebbers' downfall
Yeah.
led to some positive change.
It did. It led to some much-needed changes in how corporations are run and held accountable.
Accountability, that's key.
It is.
Ebbers' story, it's a cautionary tale, isn't it?
It is.
It reminds us that unchecked power
Yeah.
and that constant chase for profit without any regard for ethics or the law, it can have huge consequences.
Huge. Yeah.
It can impact so many people.
Absolutely.
So what happened to Ebbers after his conviction?
Well, he actually served 13 years of that 25-year sentence.
Okay.
And then he was granted compassionate release
Compassionate release. Why?
in December 2019 because of his declining health.
Oh, I see.
He passed away just a few months later.
So it's a complicated story.
It
There's
is.
a lot of layers.
Yeah, his release actually caused a lot of debate about, like, the purpose of punishment
Right.
and whether his sentence was even too harsh.
Especially with his age and health.
Exactly. It's a complex issue. There's no easy answers.
For sure.
It also makes you think about, like, what is Ebbers' legacy?
Yeah, how do we remember him?
Right. How do we reconcile this image of the visionary entrepreneur?
The guy who built a telecom empire.
Yeah.
Oh.
With the reality of the convicted felon
The man behind a massive fraud.
who cost so many people their livelihoods.
It's a tough one.
It's a very complicated legacy.
On one hand, Ebbers had a huge impact on the telecom industry. He changed how we communicate,
Yeah.
created jobs, brought new ideas to the market.
But then on the other hand,
You have the devastation he caused.
yeah, the broken lives, the lost savings.
The loss of trust in corporate America.
It shows us that success, no matter how big, it can't just be measured by profits.
Right. It's not just about the bottom line.
Exactly.
Ethics matter.
They do.
Integrity matters.
And those are the qualities that really tell us if someone's a true visionary.
Or just a con artist hiding in plain sight.
Exactly.
Before we wrap up, what happened to WorldCom after everything?
Well, after filing for bankruptcy in 2002,
Yeah.
WorldCom emerged from bankruptcy protection in 2004
Under a new name.
under new name, MCI.
MCI. Okay.
And then in 2006, Verizon Communications acquired MCI
Verizon. Wow.
for $8.44 billion.
So the company Ebbers built was absorbed by an even bigger giant.
It's kind of poetic in a way.
It is. It reflects that constant evolution, you know?
Yeah.
The consolidation you see in the tech world.
And it shows that even after a scandal this big, companies can adapt, restructure, and come back.
Right. They can reinvent themselves.
It's a reminder that even when things are really bad, there's always a chance for renewal.
For a fresh start.
But it's important to remember that those second chances, they're built on the lessons we learn from past mistakes.
And in WorldCom's case, those lessons came at a high price.
A very high price.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Bernard Ebbers and the WorldCom scandal,
Yeah.
we're left with a lot to think about.
A lot to unpack.
It raises these big questions about ambition, leadership,
Right.
and that fine line between innovation and deception.
It really makes you think about human nature, doesn't it?
It does.
Ebbers wasn't just some, cartoon villain.
I-
He was a leader. He was a charismatic, a religious man.
Yeah.
People were loyal to him.
They were.
But he was also flawed, driven by this need for success.
Yeah.
That took him down a dark path.
It's like we're seeing two different people,
Right.
both, but completely at odds with each other.
The visionary entrepreneur who built this huge company,
Yeah.
and the convicted criminal who masterminded a massive fraud.
That costs so many people everything.
It's what makes this story so fascinating, so unsettling.
It is. It forces us to confront this truth that even people who achieve incredible things
People who seem to have it all.
can still fall prey to greed, ambition, power.
It's a reminder that none of us are immune to those temptations.
So what are the key takeaways here?
What can we learn from Ebbers and WorldCom?
Well, I think the biggest lesson is that ethics matter.
Absolutely.
Integrity matters.
You can't build a lasting business or a good life
Right.
on a foundation of lies and deceit.
It's all going to come crashing down eventually.
And the consequences can be brutal.
And it's not just about personal ethics either, right?
It's bigger than that.
It's about creating a culture of accountability
Within organizations, yeah.
where people feel safe to speak up when something's wrong,
Where whistleblowers are protected.
not punished. It's about having strong regulations, like Sarbanes-Oxley.
To help prevent these things from happening again.
But even with all that, it still comes down to people making ethical choices,
Even when it's tough.
even when it's hard,
Even when it goes against the grain.
because that temptation to take the easy way out, to cut corners, to chase success no matter what.
It's always going to be there.
It's human nature.
But we have to resist that urge.
Choose integrity.
Even when it's the harder choice.
Ebbers' story is a powerful reminder of that.
It shows the dangers of unchecked power.
And the importance of holding ourselves and those in charge accountable.
For their actions, yeah.
It's a story that still matters today.
It still has something to teach us.
It challenges us.
Reminds us that our choices have consequences.
Think about the lessons we've talked about today.
Yeah.
The choices you make, the people you admire, the systems you're a part of.
In a world full of charisma and controversy,
We all have to be careful. Ask the tough questions.
demand better from ourselves.
And from those around us.
Maybe, by learning from the past,
Yeah.
we can build a better future.
Where vision and integrity go hand in hand.
Where success isn't just about profits.
What about doing things the right way?
And maybe then, stories like Bernard Ebbers will
Yeah.
become warnings, not blueprints for disaster.